television station, a Turkish station, TRT, last night, and the anchor asked me, "Are people going into bunkers?" Um, I said, people are out celebrating. They're not going to the bunkers. Uh, so the answer is no. Of course, Iran experienced 8 years of war in the 1980s. Uh, the Saddam's government, with the help of the United States and European countries, and the money of a number of Arab states that decided to attack Iran. So there is this um, culture of resistance in Iran. Uh, of course, the younger people did not see that war, but their parents did. And I don't think you have been to Tehran. If you come here, the streets in Tehran and other cities are named after the soldiers that were killed in Iran-Iraq war. So although this is about 30 years ago, um, this culture of resistance against uh, foreign power that is attacking the country is part of the Iranian psyche. And in Shia Islam, uh, the issue of martyrdom is very much highlighted, and the majority of people in Iran are Shia Muslims. So the culture on these issues is somewhat different. The hope that I think Iranian government leaders have is that the Israelis, Netanyahu especially, realizes that Iran has a lot of ballistic missiles. Uh, the Iron Dome last night uh, was more like a glass dome. It really didn't work. Uh, so the hope I think that Iranian leaders have is for Netanyahu not to do the things you just mentioned, because that would start a war. Uh, Iranian leaders have said that they're done, uh, and they don't want to do this again tonight. And they hope that the other side realizes that continuing this war, continuing the genocide, continuing their attacks in Lebanon is not a good idea. We had a UN resolution a few months ago asking Israel to have a ceasefire. Even the United States voted for that. So if Netanyahu had accepted that uh, resolution, then we would not be talking about this issue tonight.
And what Iran has vowed that if Israel does respond, it will escalate and it will attack the oil facilities off the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and the world economy will suffer a massive blow. What does Iran's military have the capacity to do? I think many people, many observers were surprised to see Iran's hypersonic missiles in action, and that they demonstrated the ability to penetrate the Iron Dome. But what are, to your knowledge, Iran's military capabilities, and can it actually confront Israel and all of its NATO patrons?
I don't think, uh, at least at this stage, Iran will attack Saudi Arabia or UAE. I think if Israelis attack Iran, Iran will repeat what happened last night with a larger scale. I think Iran has used about 10 or 15% of its capabilities, and not the stockpile. The stockpile is quite huge, but the ability uh, that was used was, I think, about 10 or 15%. And I think you have seen that Iranian leaders have said that if Israelis attack infrastructure in Iran, they would attack Israeli infrastructure. last night, uh, the targets were military bases, the Mossad headquarters. There was a concentration of tanks near Gaza, and that was attacked. The tanks that were engaging in genocide. There were some military bases in uh, at the Lebanese border that was attacked. So Iran focused on military bases. I've been doing some interviews today, and people have been asking me, we haven't seen any damage in Tel Aviv. And my reply was, Iran uh, does not consider Netanyahu to be an example. Iran was not interested in attacking women and children in Tel Aviv. That's why there are no casualties in the city. The targets were at military bases, and Israelis don't allow cameras at military bases or Mossad headquarters.
Right.
But
Right.
I think the pictures are quite telling. We have, we see dozens of ballistic missiles landing, and these are huge, huge missiles. They cause damage. So the hope that I think Iranian leaders had was that Israelis realize this capacity and would stop and not do anything more.
And you mentioned, Dr. Izadi, that there was a comment. Actually, I witnessed this comment at a meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly by Iran's recently inaugurated president, Masoud Pezeshkian, with Javad Zarif, the vice president of strategic affairs, seated beside him, that they essentially trusted the Americans after the assassination of Hamas Politburo leader Ismail Haniyeh in his hotel room in Tehran right after Pezeshkian's inauguration, that the U.S. would find a way of finalizing a ceasefire within about a week. And that is why Iran held off on retaliating against Israel and establishing some level of deterrence back in July. In your view, was that a mistake? And how do Iranians view that? I know there were protests after Pezeshkian's comments came to light, which I think helped create pressure for this current retaliation. But in your view, was it a mistake to trust the Americans? And who's actually making the decisions here?
You're right. Um, After the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, there were a lot of people who were saying that if you had, telling the government, that if you had responded to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, then this second assassination would not have materialized. And I don't know, Israelis have been killing uh, Palestinian leaders, Lebanese leaders uh, for the last 76 years. This is nothing new. So I don't know the answer to that question. Um, but I think uh, Dr. Zarif, Mr. Pezeshkian is a heart surgeon, so he's uh, learning how to become a president. Um, but Dr. Zarif has been around international issues for many decades, and I don't think he actually believed the Americans. I hope not. But Iran did not want to engage Israel militarily. Iran did not want to do what Iran did last night. And yes, one reason that the operation last night happened was because of public opinion pressure. Iran, the new government in Iran, Dr. Pezeshkian's administration, uh, wants to uh, do other things, work on the economy. Um, he has had campaign promises he wants to fulfill. They're interested in finding someone in the White House who is interested in returning to the nuclear agreement. They're concerned about these issues. They don't want to be fighting Israelis because the people who are running Israel are genocidal. But I think the reason last night happened was that there was a consensus among uh, uh, Iranian leaders that if they don't do anything, the Israelis will be emboldened and they may attack Iran again at a larger scale. So this was a measure of creating deterrence. The hope that they had was to tell the Israelis that this type of attacks would not be tolerated. In Iran, we have this National Security Council, 10 members, five come from the executive branch, including the president, the foreign minister, uh, uh, people who deal with these issues. We have the head of the judiciary, the head of the legislative branch, some military leaders, and this the type of decisions that was made last night is made in that National Security Council.
And Israel did not join in the assassination of Major General Qasem Soleimani. Some suspect because it was afraid of Iran's response. It'd be much harder for Iran to retaliate directly against the U.S. than Iran, except for, I guess, hitting the Al-Assad, American Al-Assad military base in Iraq. Um, what do you think of the view that Iran did not strike back hard enough after Soleimani's killing, and that this has encouraged Israel to go on this spree of assassinations and further killings, including smuggling a machine gun into Iran to kill an Iranian military scientist? Has Iran really demonstrated deterrence at this point?
Semua ada di Unify Device Fiesta. Telepon, television, semuanya ada. Pilih pelan.
You're right, because uh, we do know this about Israeli leaders, that they don't have any ethical standards. So they engage in this type of terrorism if there is no pain, or if the pain can be tolerated. And I think you're right. They looked at Iran's response to General Soleimani's assassination, and they thought this could be tolerated, and they started repeating that style in different places. And so that's one issue that people talk about in Iran. The reason the Iranian response to General Soleimani's uh, uh, assassination in that manner was that Iran was not interested in a war. Iran is not interested in a war now. Iran could do a lot more damage to Ain al-Assad, that military base. But as you know, Iran uh, uh, notified the Iraqi government